HOA used forged docs to claim my house, then had the nerve to call cops when I kicked them out. The morning sun spilled through my kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the chipped coffee mug in my hand. I stood there, barefoot on the creaky hardwood floor, savoring the quiet of my little house on Maple Street. It wasn't much a modest two-bedroom with a sagging porch and a backyard overrun by dandelions, but it was mine. Paid off with years of late-night shifts at the hospital, every splintered floorboard and peeling paint chip was a badge of survival. My sanctuary after the divorce, after the chaos of losing my brother Ethan to a car accident, after everything. That peace shattered with a knock at the door. Not a polite tap, but a pounding that rattled the frame. I opened it to find Karen Whitaker, president of the Maple Street Homeowners Association, standing there like she owned the place. Her bleach blonde hair was sprayed into submission, her lips pursed in that trademark HOA scowl. Behind her stood two men in cheap suits, one clutching a clipboard, the other a leather folder stuffed with papers. "Ms. Harper," Karen said, her voice dripping with false courtesy. "We need to discuss your property." Immediately, I leaned against the doorframe, coffee mug still in hand. "Karen, if this is about my lawn again, I told you I'd mow it this weekend." Her smile tightened. "It's not about your lawn. It's about your house. Specifically, the fact that it no longer belongs to you." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I laughed, assuming it was some HOA power trip gone too far. "Excuse me." The man with the clipboard stepped forward, his voice flat. "According to our records, this property was transferred to the Maple Street HOA 6 months ago due to unpaid dues and violations. You were notified." "Notified?" My grip on the mug tightened. "I've never missed a payment. I own this house outright." "You've got the wrong person." Karen's eyes gleamed with something I couldn't quite place triumph. "Maybe. The paperwork is quite clear, Ms. Harper. You'll need to vacate by noon today, or we'll involve the authorities." I slammed the door in their faces, my heart pounding. This had to be a mistake. I dug through my files, pulling out my deed, my mortgage discharge letter, every scrap of proof I could find. Everything was in order. But when I called the county clerk's office, the woman on the phone hesitated before delivering the blow. A new deed had been filed, transferring my house to the HOA, the signature on it. Mine. Or at least, a convincing forgery. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the documents, my mind racing. How could this happen? I'd never missed an HOA meeting, never ignored a notice. But Karen had always had it out for me ever since I refused to repaint my house, HOA-approved beige, 2 years ago. She'd nitpicked everything. My mailbox, my flower beds, even the color of my curtains. Was this her endgame? Stealing my house. The clock ticked closer to noon. I wasn't going down without a fight. I called my friend Jamie, a lawyer who owed me a favor after I'd patched up her kid's broken arm last summer. She promised to dig into the records and meet me at the house by 1 p.m. But as noon hit, Karen was back, this time with a sheriff's deputy in tow. "Ms. Harper," the deputy said, his voice gruff but not unkind, "I've got an eviction notice here. You need to leave now." I stood my ground, clutching my deed. "This is my house. Those papers are forged. I'm not going anywhere." Karen smirked, folding her arms. "Oh, Claire, don't make a scene. Just pack your things and go. We've already got a buyer lined up." "A buyer?" Rage surged through me. I stepped onto the porch, pointing at Karen. "You forged my signature, you conniving." I caught myself, glancing at the deputy. "Officer, I have proof I own this house. Check the original deed." The deputy frowned, looking between us. "Ma'am, I'm just following orders. If you've got a dispute, you'll need to take it to court." "Court?" I laughed bitterly. "By then, she'll have sold my house." Karen's smirk didn't waver. "Claire, you're trespassing. Leave, or I'll press charges." That was it. I snapped. Trespassing? In my own house. I grabbed a suitcase from the hall closet, threw it open on the porch, and started tossing out Karen's precious HOA rulebooks she'd left on my doorstep over the years. "Here's your trash, Karen. Take it and get off my property." The deputy grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Ma'am, calm down, or I'll have to cuff you." That's when Mrs. Delgado, my 80-year-old neighbor, shuffled across her lawn, her walker glinting in the sun. She'd always been quiet, keeping to herself, but her eyes burned with fury now. "Let her go," she shouted, her voice surprisingly strong. I saw everything. Everyone froze. Karen's smirk faltered. Mrs. Delgado, this doesn't concern you. Oh, it does, Mrs. Delgado snapped. I saw you, Karen, sneaking into Claire's mailbox last year, stealing her mail. I've got it on my security camera. And I know about your little scheme with that real estate developer, too. The deputy loosened his grip on me. Ma'am, what's this about a developer? Mrs. Delgado didn't blink. Karen's been cozying up with Pinnacle Realty. They've been buying up half the neighborhood, flipping houses for millions. Claire's house is the last one on this block they don't own. My jaw dropped. A developer? This wasn't just about Karen's vendetta, it was part of a bigger game. I looked at her, expecting a denial, but her face had gone gray. She stammered. That's ridiculous. I'm just enforcing HOA rules. Rules? Mrs. Delgado laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You forged documents to steal her home. I've got the footage of you meeting that Pinnacle man in your garage, handing over Claire's stolen mail. You thought no one was watching, didn't you? The deputy's radio crackled, but he ignored it, turning to Karen. Ms. Whitaker, I'm going to need you to come with me to the station and talk about this. Karen's composure shattered. This is absurd. I'm the one being harassed. Claire attacked me. Attacked? I scoffed. I threw paper clips at you're the one who tried to rob me blind. The crowd that had gathered neighbors I'd barely spoken to in years started whispering. Some looked shocked. Others nodded like they'd suspected Karen's antics all along. The deputy escorted Karen to his car, promising to hold off on the eviction until things were sorted. As her car door slammed shut, I felt a flicker of victory. But it was short-lived. Jamie arrived an hour later, her face grim. Claire, this is worse than we thought. The forged deed was notarized by Karen's cousin, who's already on probation for fraud. But Pinnacle Realty's involved, and they've got money and lawyers. They've already started the sale process. We can fight it, but it'll be a long. I sank into my couch, the one I'd bought with my house Ethan after he'd saved up from his mechanic's gig. How did this happen, Jamie? How did I not see this coming? She squeezed my shoulder. Karen's been planning this for months. She's been siphoning HOA funds, too probably to pay off her accomplices. But we've got Mrs. Delgado's footage and your records. We'll build a case. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house, touching every surface: the kitchen counter where Ethan used to sit, cracking jokes, the living room where we'd watched old movies. Losing this place would mean losing him all over again. I opened my laptop and started digging into Pinnacle Realty. Their website was all glossy promises, but their reviews told a different story. Displaced families, shady deals, homes bulldozed for condos. Karen wasn't just a petty tyrant, she was their puppet. The next morning, I marched to the HOA office, a cramped trailer at the edge of the neighborhood. Karen wasn't there still at the station, I hoped, but her assistant, Tim, was. He was a nervous kid, barely 20, who'd always seemed terrified of Karen. I leaned on the desk, keeping my voice calm. Tim, I know you know what Karen's been up to. Help me, and I'll make sure you're not dragged down with her. He fidgeted, avoiding my eyes. I don't know anything, Miss Harper. Bull, I said. You've been typing up her memos, filing her papers. You've seen something. Tell me, or I'll make sure the cops ask you instead. Tim's face crumpled. Okay. She had me shred some documents last month. Stuff about your house, and others. She said it was old records, but I saw your name. And there's a flash drive. She keeps it in her desk. It's got emails with Pinnacle. My pulse raced. Get it for me. He hesitated, then nodded, slipping into Karen's office. He returned with a tiny USB drive, his hands shaking. Don't tell her I gave you this. I plugged the drive into my laptop that night, Jamie by my side. The emails were a goldmine: Karen coordinating with Pinnacle's CEO, promising to clear my property for a hefty commission. There were scans of my stolen mail, forged signatures, even a timeline for evicting me. But one email stopped me cold. It was from Karen to an unknown address, dated a year ago. Ethan's accident wasn't an accident, was it? You promised me it'd look clean. I felt the air leave my lungs. Ethan's crash had been ruled a hit and run, the driver never found. I'd grieved, raged, but never suspected foul play. Now this? Jamie's hand gripped mine. Claire, we need to take this to the police. All of it. The next day, I handed the drive to the sheriff's department. The deputy's eyes widened as he scanned the files. This is we'll need to bring in the feds. Pinnacle's got connections, but this is too big to bury. For a moment, I felt like I was floating vindicated, finally. Karen was arrested, her cousin too, and Pinnacle's CEO was under investigation. The eviction was halted, my house safe for now. Neighbors rallied, offering support, some confessing they'd been bullied by Karen for years. Mrs. Delgado became my new hero, bringing tamales and stories of her own battles. But the victory was hollow. That email about Ethan haunted me. Was his death tied to this? Had Karen or Pinnacle done something to silence him? He'd been nosy, always poking into town gossip. Had he stumbled onto their plans for the neighborhood? I'd never know. The driver was still out there, the email untraceable. One night, I sat on my porch, staring at the stars. I'd won my house back, but at what cost? Ethan was gone, and the truth about his death might never surface. Karen's trial loomed, but even Karen's conviction wouldn't heal the betrayal off my neighbor, my community, my trust. I laughed bitterly, realizing the irony. Karen had called the HOA cops on me, but in the end, she'd been the one led away in cuffs. Yet the real sting? My house, my sanctuary, didn't feel like home anymore. Every creak reminded me of her scheme, every shadow of Ethan's absence. I'd fought like hell to keep it, but maybe the fight had broken something deeper. As the stars burned above, I wondered if I'd ever find peace again or if, like Karen, I'd just been chasing something that was never truly mine. The weeks that followed were a blur of depositions, court dates, and sleepless nights. My house, still standing under my name thanks to Mrs. Delgado's bombshell and Tim's flash drive, became both a fortress and a prison. Every time I stepped onto the porch, I half expected another eviction notice. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers. Some neighbors offered casseroles and sympathy. Others avoided my gaze, as if my fight with Karen had exposed their own complicity in letting her reign unchecked. Jamie worked tirelessly, building a case against Karen, her cousin, and Pinnacle Realty. The flash drive was a goldmine, but it wasn't enough to crack the Ethan mystery. That single email, Ethan's accident wasn't an accident, was it? Gnawed at me like a splinter under my skin. I spent hours scouring old police reports, Ethan's phone records, anything that might connect him to Pinnacle or Karen. He'd been a mechanic, not a detective, but he loved this neighborhood. He'd fixed Mrs. Delgado's old Buick for free, helped kids repair their bikes. Had he overheard something? Seen something? I couldn't let it go. One evening, as I sifted through Ethan's old toolbox in the garage, I found a crumpled notebook tucked behind a wrench. His handwriting sprawled across the pages, notes about cars, grocery lists, but also something else. Pinnacle guy at Karen's, 2 a.m. sketchy. Asked about Claire's house. My heart stopped. The date was a week before his crash. Ethan had known something was up. Why hadn't he told me? I clutched the notebook, tears blurring the ink. He'd been protecting me, and it had cost him everything. I handed the notebook to Jamie, who added it to the evidence pile. "This is big, Claire," she said, her voice steady but her eyes worried. "It ties Ethan directly to their scheme. But we need more to prove foul play in his death." The trial began in early fall, the courthouse packed with reporters sniffing out the scandal. Karen sat at the defense table, her hair less perfect now, her eyes darting nervously. She'd pleaded not guilty to fraud, forgery, and theft, claiming she was just a dedicated HOA president, following protocol. Her lawyer painted me as a paranoid troublemaker, twisting my outburst on the porch into assault. I wanted to scream, but Jamie kept me grounded. "Let the evidence talk," she whispered. Mrs. Delgado took the stand, her frail frame belying her fire. She recounted Karen's mailbox tampering, her late-night meetings with Pinnacle's men, and played her security footage for the court. The grainy video showed Karen slipping into my mailbox, pulling out envelopes, and later meeting a suited man in her garage. The courtroom buzzed. Karen's lawyer tried to dismiss it as circumstantial, but the judge's frown said otherwise. Tim's testimony was the real gut punch. Pale and sweating, he admitted to shredding documents on Karen's orders and overhearing her discuss clearing my property for Pinnacle. "She said Claire was a problem," he mumbled, "that she'd never sell willingly." When asked about Ethan, Tim hesitated, then dropped a bomb. "Karen told me once that Ethan was taken care of after he started asking questions about Pinnacle." I thought she was joking. The room erupted. Karen's face went white, her lawyer shouting objections. I gripped Jamie's hand so hard my knuckles ached. Ethan hadn't just been targeted. I wanted to lunge across the courtroom and shake the truth out of Karen, but Jamie's grip kept me in my seat. The prosecution called a surprise witness next, Lila Monroe, a former Pinnacle Realty intern who'd quit after discovering their shady tactics. She was young, barely 22, with a nervous tick of twisting her bracelet. I saw emails, she testified, between Pinnacle CEO and Karen. They planned to flip Claire's house for a condo development. They knew she'd fight, so they forged the deed. And there was talk about an accident to quiet someone who was digging too deep. The courtroom went silent. Lila's voice shook as she continued. I didn't know who Ethan was then, but I heard the CEO say, "One less problem on Maple Street." I quit the next day. I couldn't breathe. Jamie scribbled notes furiously, whispering, "This could reopen Ethan's case." But all I could see was my brother's face, his goofy grin, gone because he'd stumbled into Karen's greed. The trial adjourned for the day, and I stumbled outside, the autumn air sharp against my skin. Mrs. Delgado found me on a bench, her walker clattering. "You're strong, Claire," she said. "Ethan would be proud." But I didn't feel strong. I felt hollow, like the fight had carved out pieces of me I'd never get back. The trial dragged on, each day peeling back more of Karen's web. Her cousin confessed to notarizing the forged deed for a bribe. Pinnacle CEO took a plea deal, implicating Karen in exchange for a lighter sentence. The evidence was overwhelming, but the Ethan question lingered. No one could prove the accident was murder yet. On the final day, Karen took the stand. She played the victim, crocodile tears streaming as she claimed she'd only wanted to protect the neighborhood's value. When the prosecution pressed her about Ethan, she snapped. "I didn't touch him. That was Pinnacle's doing." The admission wasn't enough for a murder charge, but it was enough to crack her facade. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, theft, and conspiracy. I should have felt relief as Karen was led away, her hands cuffed. Her reign over Maple Street ended. The judge restored my deed, and Pinnacle's project was halted. Neighbors threw a block party to celebrate, with Mrs. Delgado cutting the cake. But as I stood in my backyard, watching kids chase fireflies, I felt no joy. Ethan's notebook sat on my kitchen counter, a silent accusation. His death was still unsolved, the driver still free. Karen's words, "That was Pinnacle's doing," echoed in my mind. Someone out there knew the truth, and they were untouchable. I sold the house a month later. I couldn't stay, not with the ghosts of Ethan's laugh in every room, not with the memory of Karen's smirk on my porch. I moved to a small apartment across town, where the walls were blank and the past couldn't follow. Jamie kept pushing for a deeper investigation into Ethan's death, but the trail was cold. Pinnacle CEO claimed ignorance, and Karen clammed up in prison. The truth slipped through my fingers like sand. One night, I got a call from Mrs. Delgado. "Claire," she said, her voice soft, "I found something in my attic. A letter, addressed to you, from Ethan." My heart raced as I drove to her house. The letter was in a sealed envelope, Ethan's scrawl unmistakable. Inside, he'd written, "Claire, if anything happens to me, check Karen's garage. She's up to something with Pinnacle. Don't let them take your house. Love, E." I cried until dawn, clutching the letter. He'd known. He'd tried to warn me. But it was too late to save him, too late to change anything. I donated the letter to the police, hoping it might spark something, but they called it inconclusive. The case stayed cold. Now, I sit in my apartment, a stranger in my own life. The HOA is gone, replaced by a new board led by Mrs. Delgado, who's rewriting the rules to protect, not punish. But my victory feels like defeat. I kept my house, only to lose it to grief. Karen's in prison, but Ethan's killer walks free. The irony stings. She called the cops on me, but I'm the one left with nothing but memories and a bitter laugh. What's right and wrong in a world where greed can steal a home, a brother, a life? Where justice stops short of truth? I don't have answers. I just have this story, raw and jagged, and a question for anyone listening. What would you do if your sanctuary was stolen, not by force, but by lies? Share your thoughts because maybe, in the telling, we find a way to fight back.